Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Theravāda Buddhism series, Dhamma talk number 43. Noble persons, Ariya, and mental defilements, Kilesa. We'll discuss the relationship between noble persons and mental defilements in this talk. In a way, it is gauging where one is with regard to being Ariya. One of 8 noble persons, 4 persons, eradicates different aspects of mental defilements. The Buddha taught us using 10 factors that binds a being to samsara because it is not sufficient to explain only with 3 mental defilements, lobha, dosa, and moha. The 10 fetters, fetters, pardon my pronunciation. The 10 fetters are wrong view, doubt, rites and rituals, sense desire, ill will, fine material existence, immaterial existence, conceit, restlessness, and ignorance. Different path consciousness eradicates wholly and in some cases shaves off or weaken fetters from the gross level to the subtle level. Let's see the first noble person, the stream enterer. Some people translate it as stream winner. Sotapanna. A yogi attains the first path consciousness, Megaccheta, upon maturity of vipassana insights. When a yogi attains the first path consciousness, that yogi becomes Sotapanna, the stream enterer. This first path consciousness completely uprooted the wrong view also, because one has known firsthand it is simply the physical and mental phenomenon. Before, we all believe it's a self, me self, myself, yourself, or a soul, or a spirit, a being. But vipassana insight give you the first-hand experience and understanding that it's simply a twin phenomenon, physical and mental are in play, but we deludedly understood as self. Also, this path consciousness eradicates doubt, vicikicca, doubt in the Buddha, doubt in the Dhamma, and doubt in Sangha, and also doubt in the law of karma, the law of karma. And also, this first path consciousness eliminate rites and rituals, believing that could end all forms of suffering, because at the time of Buddha, there are many teachers, philosophies, ideas, viewpoints. They all believe that their method will bring about the end of all suffering. Rites and rituals. And Sotapanna understand there's only one way, the only way. Eightfold Noble Path is the one that can bring about the end of suffering, but nothing else. Also, this path consciousness partially eradicates sense desire and ill will. In other words, it eradicates gross forms of sense desire, kama chanda, and ill will, vyapada. Partially, the gross nature. What does it mean by gross nature of sense desire and ill will? It is the sense desire and ill will that can drag you down or take you down to hell realm, animal realms, hungry ghost realm, and demonic realm. That kind of sense desire and ill will, we termed it gross form. And the first path consciousness totally eradicate that part. If a stream enterer, Sotapanna, does not gain a higher level of enlightenment in this life, they will be reborn as Sotapanna for a maximum of 7 existences before achieving that final liberation. In other words, if one becomes a Sotapanna in this life and does not progress any farther, he or she will practice and be liberated from samsara. In the 7th life, that one will put enough effort to practice vipassana and attain nibbana. In the 2nd to the 7th rebirth, in those rebirths, one does not know that they are Sotapanna. However, there's one indicator whether he or she knows that he or she is Sotapanna or not. That first noble person will never break the 5 precepts: killing a being, stealing and robbing, with wicked greed, engaging in sexual misconducts, lying and slandering, volition to hurt and harm others, and taking intoxicant, which makes one malleable to break the first 4 precepts and become heedless. That a Sotapanna will never break. Not only that he never breaks, that person does not even need to put effort not to break, because such kind of thoughts, such kind of breaking these thoughts never arise in their mind. Just like to dramatize it, a 2-year-old's mind, a thought of driving a car cannot arise, will not arise. Period. Just like that, a Sotapanna mind, a thought of breaking the precepts will never arise. Needless to say about breaking it. It is the stage of moral purity, the first noble person, Sotapanna. Okay, the 2nd noble person, Sakadagami, in English, once returner. The 2nd path consciousness does not eradicate any new mental fetters, but weakens sense desire and ill will that Sotapanna has to a subtle degree. Before the gross form are gone, but still they are bad, they are unwholesome, they are still movable. But with the practice, it becomes finer and finer, more refined, and become very subtle undercurrent. So regardless, it is still considered unwholesome, although it will not drag one's down to the full state. Still unwholesome state of mind. These one's Ratana are still capable of getting angry. Let's call it mildly angry. If provoked, they will be reborn one more time as human. Sakadami passed away, and they will be reborn one more time as a human. That's the reason it's called once returner. The third noble person, Anagami, non-returner. The third path consciousness, Megaceta, completely eradicates the remaining subtle sense desire and ill will. Such kind of very subtle negative mental state will never arise in that person's mind ever again. However, these Anagami, they don't have to be a monk. They can be a layperson or a householder. One may even be married from the legal point of view, but the couple will stay as a brother and sister instead of being a husband and a wife. There are some cases in the sutra, and even there are some cases in the modern era around 1850 to 900. Anagami always keep 8 precepts as they have no desire for senses. One will not eat meals after 12 o'clock, afternoon. They will not listen to music, watch entertainment, or live luxuriously. Of course, exception is if the environment condition forces them. Say they are at a certain place and in the neighborhood there's a big loudspeaker playing songs and so on. For them it is simply hearing, just a sound. But they will never put any effort to listen to a music or to watch a show. They keep simple living with only what is necessary and enjoy solitude except engaging in Dharma activities with the public. Anagami will not be reborn in the sense sphere. Anagami, a human, when he dies, he will not be reborn in Deva realm or human realm or full state. That's the reason it's called non-returner. Does not return to the sense sphere, kama vasara loka. That's how we get the name non-returner. The 5 factors of the 3 lower noble person wholly abandoned are called the lower fetters. If you recall, the first noble person abandoned self-illusion, wrong view, vicikiccha, doubt, and rites and rituals. 3 totally abandoned. Second noble person does not eradicate any particular factor but weakens them. The third noble person eradicates sense desire and ill will. So altogether 5. Wrong view, doubt, rites and rituals, sense desire, and ill will. Those 5 are called 5 lower fetters. The first 3 noble person eradicates completely. The last one, the 4th noble person, Arahant, destroyer of mental defilements. The 4th path consciousness eradicates the desire to be born in the fine material realm. In other words, Rupa Brahma. And also they have eradicates the desire to be reborn in the immaterial realm, mind only Brahma. They don't have any desire to be reborn because Arahant has no more attachment to existence. They don't have attachment to life. It is simply is. Arahant also eliminates conceit. Be careful about that conceit, mana. It is so powerful. Only when you become Arahant, one can completely eradicate it. And also restlessness, uddhacca. And finally, ignorance, avijja. So there are 5 that Arahant eradicates. First is lack of desire to be reborn in the Rupa Brahma realm. Secondly, lack of desire to be reborn in the Arupa Brahma realm. Third, conceit. 4th, restlessness. And the 5th, ignorance, avijja. And these 5 are called 5 higher fetters. Arahant is fearless. Nothing can provoke or move an Arahant. They simply exist, do what is need to be done. If there's nothing to do, they dwell in a state of samapalapa. In other words, they enjoy the fruition consciousness and that consciousness. Nothing else. Let's see this noble persons in relation to the unwholesome consciousness, akusala citta. There are 12 unwholesome consciousness, if you remember correctly. These consciousness are not capable to arise in Arahant's mind. Just like driving a car, the idea of a thought of driving a car does not arise in a 2-year-old. Just like that. Let's see one noble person at a time with regard to unwholesome consciousness. Sotapanna eradicates full unwholesome consciousness accompanied by wrong view. You have to go back to the Dhamma talk on unwholesome consciousness. There are 4 types of unwholesome consciousness accompanied with wrong view. As Sotapanna has eradicated wrong view, those 4 consciousness cannot arise in them anymore. And also, one unwholesome consciousness associated with doubt, vicikicca, cannot arise because Sotapanna had eradicated doubt in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and Karma. So there are 5 unwholesome consciousness gone. The once returner only weakens the mental defilements, the remaining unwholesome consciousness. They weaken them. But the third noble person, non-returner, eliminates two unwholesome consciousness associated with dosa, anger, because non-returner eradicates completely patigaha, anger, ill will, aversion, completely. That's why two unwholesome consciousness associated with dosa cannot arise in them anymore. So altogether, 7 unwholesome consciousness are gone when one becomes non-returner. But in the statement, they also eliminate sense desire. Yes, they eradicate sense desire. But what is sense desire? Sense desire is lobha, greed. But they still have a slight trace of lobha. What is that? They want to be reborn in the rupa brahmaram or arupa brahmaram. Existent. They are still attached to existent. Being attached to existent is lobha. So that particular lobha is still there. But other than that, every type of sense desire is eliminated. But still, lobha for existent, attachment to existent still remains in non-returner. Arahant annihilates the remaining 5 unwholesome consciousness. Those 5 are called the higher fetters. What are those 5 unwholesome consciousness? It is the attachment to rupa rams, attachment to be reborn in arupa rams. Lobha's gone, conceit, restlessness, and ignorance. So in other words, the 5 remaining moha, delusion-rooted consciousness, and lobha-rooted consciousness are gone. So altogether, 5 plus 2 plus 5, 12. All 12 unwholesome consciousness. And Arahant is free from all those 12 unwholesome consciousness. That's why they are free, or they are liberated from rebirth. May all of you be able to practice mindfulness insight meditation and attain at least the first stream enterer in this very life as soon as possible. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much.